possible that Clemson and Florida State are going to be leaving the ACC as soon as the 2025 season, not to go to the SEC, not to go to the Big Ten, but to the Big 12. Before we get to the SMU component, which is very interesting, the fact that they could possibly go to the Big 12 is what really surprised me. Because you think about it, Florida State, you'd be conference rivals with the Florida Gators. South Carolina, Clemson, you'd be conference rivals with South Carolina. Plus, get to play Georgia, Alabama, LSU, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Texas. That's a lot of great opponents for Florida State and Clemson.
Right, within the SEC. Why would you want to go to the – because, who's in – because I think the only teams I know of in the Big 12 are Oklahoma and Texas A&M. Or is Texas A&M SEC?
Oklahoma – Texas A&M is SEC. Oklahoma is SEC now.
Oh, well, who's in the Big 12 then?
You've got Oklahoma State, Baylor, Cincinnati.
Oh, that's right. Cincinnati joined the Big 12.
BYU, Arizona's joining, Colorado's joining, Utah is joining, Arizona State is joining, Kansas State, West Virginia. So nobody really of the power of the teams in the SEC. And think about the Big Ten. You've got Washington,
Ohio State, Michigan, Washington,
Oregon,
Northwestern, Oregon,
Wisconsin.
Northwestern can pull out a shocking upset every once in a while. I've seen it.
Yeah, Wisconsin, Penn State, my favorite team.
Iowa,
Illinois,
Michigan State.
Yep, Nebraska. College football is really about the Big Ten and the SEC. So the fact that Florida State and Clemson would rather join the Big 12 just seems odd to me.
Right.
But, yeah. So we also know SMU is joining the SEC, or ACC, this season. And they are now, correct me if I'm wrong on this, they are suing Clemson and Florida State directly?
I believe it is directly. I do believe they are suing both teams. I thought at first, hold on, let me actually take a look at the article to see whether they're suing the ACC for letting these teams leave or if they're suing the schools directly. Because that's what I need to know that.
Yeah, I'm not sure of the details on that one.
Yeah, it looks like they are reportedly suing FSU and Clemson directly on the grounds of breach of contract. They're seeking damages for TV revenue distribution for each season. FSU and Clemson are not playing in the ACC through 2036.
So,
sounds to me like a small school trying to get a payday.
Yeah. I mean, think about what's happened with the ACC, though. They're adding SMU, which is in Texas. Okay, I guess you can somewhat validate that. But then they go out and add Cal and Stanford.
Right. Two teams that are definitely not in the Atlantic.
I mean, to be fair, the Pac-12 was falling apart and teams were leaving.
And I wouldn't be surprised if the ACC eventually follows suit.
Yes.
Because losing Clemson and Florida State, that's like the SEC losing Alabama and Georgia. That's like the Big Ten losing Ohio State and Michigan.
Yes. But again, I just can't get over this. If you're Clemson and Florida State, you want the best chance to get to the college football playoff. I get that, like, this season, the playoff is expanding to 12 teams. So you're
Right.
more than likely going to get in if you're Clemson or Florida State. But if you want the best competition, you're not going to get that in the Big 12.
Yeah.
Like, again, we just talked about this. If you go to the SEC, you get to face the likes of Kentucky, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Georgia, Alabama, LSU, Florida,
Oregon. Or not Oregon, Oklahoma.
Oklahoma, Texas, Tennessee. And then, again, if you go to the Big Ten, you'll be in there with USC, Washington, Oregon, Wisconsin, Penn State, Illinois, Ohio State, Michigan, Purdue, Michigan State. So
Right. It's like it seems like they're going to a conference that doesn't have any big market teams.
right. Like, the Big 12 lost their big market teams when Texas and Oklahoma jumped ship and went to
The SEC.
yes. Like, I guess the biggest name left in the Big 12 would be Baylor
I'd say Baylor, kind of.
or Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma State, yeah, it's going to be weird not seeing Oklahoma and Oklahoma State in the same conference. I'm just going to tell you that.
Yeah. It's also going to be weird not seeing Oregon and Oregon State in the same conference.
What state did what conference did Oregon State go to? Or are they still in the Pac-12?
I think it's them and Washington State that don't have a conference home right now. Everybody else found a home. Arizona State, Utah, Colorado all went to the Big 12. And as you know, Washington,
And
Oregon, UCLA, USC all went to the Big 10. Which, not even just as a Penn State fan, but just as a Big 10 fan in general, I'm so excited for Oregon, Washington, and USC to join the Big 10. Because, for one, I love the Oregon-Washington rivalry. For me, that's one of the best rivalries in all of college football. But those three schools have become powerhouses in college football, especially.
Right. I mean, we've seen Oregon in the college football playoff. They were in the inaugural championship game against Ohio State.
Yes. And we've seen USC back in the day with Pete Carroll as their head coach. They were winning national championships.
Yep.
And they played Texas in a fantastic national championship game.
That was 2005? I believe 2005, yeah.
Yeah. And even with UCLA, sure, they're not as well known for their college football, but they have a ton of history in college basketball.
Right. They had one of the most stacked rosters in, what was that, 2010?
Something like that.
Or before that, because they had Kevin Love, Russell Westbrook.
Yep. John Wooden coached there.
Yeah. They've won a couple national championships.
Yeah.
UCLA did.
They nearly beat Gonzaga in the Final Four a couple years ago.
Right.
Which, who knows how that national championship would have turned out if it was Baylor against UCLA. But it's gonna be interesting. College football is gonna be so different this season.
Right, and it's gonna get more different as the seasons progress.
Because I have a feeling conference realignment is not done.
No, not at all. I wouldn't be surprised if the Power 5 became a Power 3 by the next decade.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that, though, because I think for a while, we all thought like it was just going to be the Big Ten and the SEC in like these two super conferences.
Right, but I do believe that the Big 12 eventually will start to gain more and more and more And so it'll be the SEC, the Big 12, and the Big 10.
Yes. But it's fascinating to see, like, what new rivalries are going to develop out of this all conference realignment stuff, and what new matchups do we get that we didn't expect. By the way, I know you have a PS5. Have you started playing NCAA?
Not yet. No, I haven't gotten it yet. I will eventually. I just don't want to get it yet.
Okay. I wish it was available on PS4 because I would get it right away, but they did not do that. So I have to decide if it's worth getting a PS5 or not.
Right.
So I'm not sure about that right now.